Hello, my friends. Brian King here. You ever have one of those moments with your own kids when you are reminded of your own childhood? I had one of those moments yesterday with my 16-year-old, and it made me remember a time when I was helping my dad out because my folks ran their own business, installing security systems, fire alarms, and that kind of thing. And it often required working in warehouses and things that basically weren't temperature controlled. A lot of new construction. And I remember one situation where I was helping my dad out. We'd spent a good 10 hours at least in this big warehouse, if you want to call it that. And it was nearing the end of the day, and I saw my dad hanging a pull station. You know, one of those things that says, it's red and it says pull in case of alarm. And he was hanging one of those. And it was, I think, the second to the last, or the last thing we needed to do before we could go home. And I saw him with his level. And he just kept moving it and, using the level and making sure that it was just right. And I said to him, man, isn't it good enough? Can't we just, can't you just leave it the way it is and we can go? And he looked at me and he says, why do a poor job when you can do a good one? And that's one of the lessons that just has stuck with me my whole life. That if you're going to do it well. Do it as well as you can. Don't settle for mediocre. And yesterday, it was Saturday, so it was chore day. And usually the boys give us a really hard time about doing chores. It's a lot of whining and stuff like it's the first time we'd ever asked them. And they did the chores like we asked, and I was in wiping down the counters in the kitchen, and my 16-year-old was vacuuming as he always does. And then suddenly he turns to me and he says, you know what? Even though I don't like doing this, I still want to do a good job. And that kind of knocked me over because I didn't realize he had that kind of a work ethic. Because, like any other teenager, there are times when he half-asses it. And then there are times he does an absolutely awesome job, and we wonder, where on earth did that come from? Well, now I have a clue that he has inherited the work ethic that my dad taught me, and somehow along the way I've clearly modeled it, and I've maybe said it a few times, and he was listening and he picked it up. And there are times when he seems to be more conscious of that value than others. And yesterday was one of those days where he decided, I don't have to like it to do it well. I just have to have the value that tells me that if you can do a good job, do a good job. So I just wanted to share that because it was a proud moment for me. And hopefully you've had experiences like that as well. And there is a way to instill these values in our kiddos. Even though you might not know how to do it, I know how to do it. I help parents with this kind of stuff all the time. The kids that seem to be lazy, unmotivated, resistant, there's a way to help them become more value-driven as opposed to just simply creatures of comfort and video game players and kids that seem to lack any motivation. There's a way to turn that around. So if this is something that's interesting to you and you want to discuss it more, send me off a message and we'll talk about it. In the meantime, thank you all for tuning in. I really honor your time and attention. In the meantime, this has been Brian, and remember, life is good.